Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. In today's tutorial, we're making a basket weave off the shoulder top with 3/4 length sleeves, a clean crochet make that goes with anything for makers on the go. Speaking of, by now y'all already know the drill, but just in case you're new, we have plenty of versatile crochet tutorials and patterns are here, with even more dropping twice weekly. So tell a friend and consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now, it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 375 grams of yarn. That's 1,040 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5.5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if you prefer showers or baths. I like baths, but I like efficiency more, so showers. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 5 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, and treble crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small. You can adjust it for your size and I'll explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5.5mm hook and start off by making a chain that is in multiples of 6 that can wrap around the widest part of our bust. Now I need roughly 34 inches or 46 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 90, and I actually already have this portion completed, so I'm just going to be doing a small sample size with you. And also, since this is going to start with a really long chain, I'm going to show you guys how to make a long chain without it twisting. So we're all going to start by making a chain 5. Once we have our chain, we're going to pull some slack out and then pull out our hook. We're going to insert our hook into that first chain that we made, then insert our slack loop back on our hook, then just continue on with our chain per usual, keeping this first loop on our hook. So just continue to chain per usual. Now once we have the amount of chains that we need, I will meet everyone back. Now we are back. Like I said, I'm just going to be doing a small sample size with you so far for this row, but once we have the chain, all we're going to do is pull that first loop underneath that second loop, and now we should all have a circle and our chain shouldn't be twisted. Now once we have our circle, we're going to get started on our row 1. So we're going to chain 2, and from here simply put 1 half double crochet into every chain. So just to do the first, yarn over. Insert your hook into that first chain, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. Again, yarn over, following chain, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. From here, continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain. We should end up with the same amount of half double crochets as chains that we made. Then I'll meet everyone back. We've just made our way all the way around with our row 1. Now to complete it, we are going to slip stitch into that second chain that we made when we started this row. So just making sure that our work isn't twisted, we're going to count up 1, count up 2. Into that second chain, insert with a slip stitch. That slip stitch is just to connect. It may look like another stitch when we do our following rows, but that will not count. From here, we're going to get started on our first basket weave row. So chain 2. Now we're going to start with 3 front post treble crochets. Now finding the first half double crochet from our previous row, not that chain 2, because remember that chain 2 doesn't actually count as a stitch, we're going to yarn over twice. Bring our hook down underneath the body of that first half double crochet and through the other side. Yarn over and pull through to get a total of 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That is our first front post treble. They're going to be worked in sets of 3, so to do our second one, yarn over twice again. Underneath the body of that following half double crochet, insert, bring your hook through the other side, pull through, yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook, and we have 1 more front post treble to do, so yarn over twice. Bring our hook down underneath the body of that following stitch through the other side, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, 2, 2, and now we should all have a total of 3 front post treble crochets. Now we're all going to do 3 back post treble crochets, so yarn over twice again. We're now going to bring our hook underneath our work, up through that next gap and over the body of that next half double. So bring your hook back underneath our work, in through that next gap, over the body of that next half double crochet, and through the other side. Then from here we're going to yarn over and pull through, then yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. That is our first back post treble. Let's do another one. Yarn over twice, bring our hook back and underneath our work, in through that next gap, over the body of that next half double, through the other side. Yarn over, pull through, then yarn over, pull through 2 until you have 1 loop left. Then, just like our front post, our back post will be worked in sets of 3 as well, so another back post. So yarn over twice. Bring our hook down, underneath our work, in through that gap, over the body of that half double, through the other side, and pull through. Yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left. From here, continue to repeat our 3 front posts, 3 back post trebles, making our way all the way around. Let's just do the next set of stitches together. So yarn over twice again. Underneath the body of that next stitch, through the other side, pull through, and pull through 2 till we have 1 loop left. We're going to do this 2 more times for a total of 3 front post treble crochets. This is my second, then once more, underneath that following stitch, pull through, and now our 3 front post treble crochets are completed. Now just to do our back, yarn over twice, bring our hook underneath our work, over the body of that next half double, then pull through 2 till we have 1 loop left. Again, yarn over, pull through 2 till we have 1 loop left, and once more. Now from here, continue with our 3 front posts, 3 back posts, making our way all the way around. Then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have just made our way all the way around with our first basket row, or technically our row 2. Now from here, we're going to close off the row and get started on the next one. So this is going to be closed off the same way as our previous row. So we're going to count up the 2 chains that we made when we started this row. Here's 1, here's 2. Go ahead and slip stitch into that second chain that we made. Remember that the top of that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then from here, we're all going to chain 2 and flip. Now for the basket weave detail, whenever it comes to doing our odd number row is just going to extend our previous row stitches. So after we flip, we should all have 3 stitches that look like 3 front post treble crochets. So now we're going to extend that by putting 1 front post treble crochet into each of those stitches. So there's 1, into the next, there's our second, into the next, there's our 3rd front post treble crochet. Now the next set of stitches look like 3 back posts, so we're all going to do 3 back posts. And now that we have our 3 front posts, 3 back posts, we're just going to continue to extend our previous row stitches, making our way all the way around. Then I'll meet you back. We are back. We have just completed our first 3 rows. We did go ahead and slip stitch into that second chain that we made when we started off this row. Now to get started on our following row, which is our row 4, we're all going to chain 2 and flip. Now when it comes to doing our even number rows for the basket weave detail, it is now going to be the opposite from what our previous row stitches look like. So the first set of stitches should be 3 front post treble crochets. We're now going to be doing 3 back post treble crochets. So yarn over twice. Underneath the body of that first stitch, that is our first front post treble, and they're still worked in sets of 3, so we need a total of 3. Now that we have our 3 back posts, we're now going to do 3 front posts because the next set of stitches look like 3 back posts. From here, we're going to continue to do the opposite from what our previous row stitches look like till we make our way all the way around. Then slip stitch into that second chain that we made. Then I'll meet you guys back to get started on row 5. We are back. Our first 4 rows are completed. Now we're going to do our 5th. So right after we've slip stitched into that second chain, chain 2 and flip. Now, like I said, every odd number row will just extend our previous row stitches. So after we flip, my first set of stitches look like 3 back posts, so I'll be doing 3 back posts. My 3 back posts are completed. Now we're going to do 3 front posts. And now from here, we're going to continue to extend our previous row stitches, making our way all the way around. We are back. We have just completed our first 5 rows. Now from here, it is going to be a repeat of rows 2 through 5 until we get the height of this portion that we need. So placing this first row right where our waist is, because that is going to be where our waistband is going to sit. Then just continuing on with, remember, rows 2 through 5 until this reaches roughly 1 inch underneath our underarm. Then I will meet everyone back. So we are back. I have just completed the height of my body portion. Now I have a total of 15 rows. This height is just about 8 inches or 20 centimeters. Now from here, right after that last row, I did do a chain up 1 and cut. Now we're going to separate our armholes that we can go in with our top band. So first things first, we're all going to want to try on our piece. We're all going to make sure that our tail end is staying at mid underarm. Then we're going to insert our stitch marker into both sides of the tail end. So this is my tail end right here. Go ahead and insert your stitch markers into the stitches on both sides. Then from there, we're going to find our 2 middle stitches away and then insert our stitch markers into there as well. So for those of you that have my numbers, I made a total chain of 90. So I have a total of 90 stitches for this last row since we didn't do any increases or decreases. So from my middle stitch markers, I have inserted my stitch markers into the 45th and 46th stitch. Now, for those of you with my numbers, we should have 45 stitches on both sides of our stitch markers. Then we're going to insert our stitch markers into any even numbered stitch away that frame our arm. So I inserted my stitch markers into the 6th stitch away from my 2 middle stitch markers. That is including that middle stitch marker stitch. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inserted my stitch marker. Did the same thing on the other side. So from this stitch marker to this stitch marker is going to be the base portion of our armhole. Now from here, we're going to repeat this on the other side. Then we have 1 more prep row to do. Then lastly, right before we get started on the actual sleeve detail, what we're going to do is a really quick prep row. Now this following prep row isn't going to be used for the actual piece. We just want to know how many rows we're going to have to actually do for the sleeve portion. So since our piece is still on, we're going to insert our hook into one of our arm framing stitch marker stitches. Then start by making an odd number chain that can comfortably reach around our arm to our other arm framing stitch marker stitch. Now I went ahead and made my prep chain. I made a chain of 25. That's roughly 6 inches or 15 centimeters, and it can wrap around my arm, and I can slip stitch it into my other arm framing stitch marker stitch, and everything fits comfortably. Now just remember the amount of chains that we made for when we get started on the following sleeve section. So now we can take away this prep row and then we can get started on the length of our sleeve. Alright, so now that we have all the prep stuff all ready to go for when it comes to doing our sleeve, we're now going to get started on the sleeve length. So making sure that our work is flipped right side out, we're going to insert our hook into one of our middle stitch marker stitches. So the one nearest to my tail end is the one that I inserted my hook into. From here, we're all going to make a chain in multiples of 6, the length that we'd like for the sleeve to be. So you can make this as long or as short as you'd like. I'd like for mine to be roughly 3/4, so I'm going to start by making a chain that is 42, and that's roughly 10 inches or 25 centimeters. So now that we have our chain, we're all going to do one additional chain that's going to count as the base chain. Then block off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. And from here, we're going to put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. So starting with that chain that we blocked off with a 3rd chain from our hook, insert with 1 half double, then continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain. So we are back and we have just made our way all the way down with our first row. Now we're going to connect it into the base. Now for this first row, we're all going to insert our hook into that same stitch that our chain is coming out of to connect this row 1. Now that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then working towards our arm framing stitch marker stitch to work our way up to the following row, we're going to slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. That slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch either, and flip our work. Now we're going to do the same basket weave stitches that we did for the body. So we're all going to start with 3 front post trebles. So yarn over twice, finding that first half double crochet from our previous row, remembering we're not doing anything with those slip stitches into the base. We're going to insert with our first front post treble, and we're going to continue until we all have a total of 3. We've just completed our first 3 front post trebles. Now we're going to do 3 back post trebles. Now we are back. We have just completed our 3 back post trebles. From here, we're going to continue with 3 front posts, 3 back post trebles, making our way all the way down until we have just 1 stitch left at the end of the row. Then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We've just made our way all the way down with our second row. We should all have just 1 stitch left. And the last set of stitches that we all should have done should be 3 back post trebles. Now, just to make sure that the end of our row is nice and even, we're simply going to put 1 half double crochet into the top of the last stitch from our previous row. Now from here, we're going to chain 2 and flip. Now, just like the same rules that we did for the body, every odd number row is going to extend our previous row stitches. So since the first set of stitches that I have look like 3 front posts, I will now do 3 front post trebles. Now that we have our 3 front posts, we're now going to do 3 back posts because the next set of stitches look like 3 back posts. Now from here, we're going to continue to extend our previous row stitches until we reach the end of the row. Then I'll meet you back. So we've just made our way all the way down with our row 3. Now to close off every single row, we are going to just put 1 half double crochet into the last stitch. So yarn over, just into that last stitch, insert with 1 half double crochet. We just add that last half double crochet so that we have the same amount of stitches as chains that we made. Now we're going to connect it into the base again. So just finding that next available stitch into the base, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Again, that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base and flip our work. Now, 2 things. Whenever we're getting started on an even number row, we are not going to be worked into that half double crochet that we closed the previous row off with. And we are still going to do the opposite from what our previous row stitches look like, just like how we did for the body. So since my first set of stitches look like 3 front posts, I will now be doing 3 back posts, making sure that we're inserting our hook underneath that first post stitch and not that half double. Now that we have our 3 back posts, we're now going to do 3 front posts because the next set of stitches look like 3 back posts. And from here, we're going to continue to do the opposite from what our previous row stitches look like, making our way all the way down. Then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have made our way all the way down and our 4th row is nearly finished. Now we just want to make sure that we're half double crocheting into the top of the chain 2 from our previous row. Then just to get started on our row 5, we're all going to chain 2 and flip. And now just to do our row 5, since it is an odd number row, we're just going to extend our previous row stitches. We're going to start with 3 back posts, 3 front posts, making our way all the way down. Then I'll meet you back at the end of the row. We're now at the end of our row 5. We do want to make sure that we're still inserting a half double crochet into the top of the last stitch from our previous row. And now we're going to connect it into the base the same way that we've been doing this entire time. So just into that next available stitch, go ahead and insert with a slip stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, which mine is my stitch marker stitch, but if yours isn't, that's fine as well. Just slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, flip our work, then continue to repeat the same basket weave detail that we've been doing this entire time. No increases, no decreases. I will meet everyone back once we're worked into our stitch marker stitch, so we shall end along the outer edge. Then I'll show you guys what we're going to do to work our way across for the width of our sleeve. So we are back. We have just completed the first portion of our sleeve and we're worked into our arm framing stitch marker stitch. Now we all should have ended along the outer edge. Now from here, we're going to do our same exact basket weave rows that we've been doing this entire time for the sleeve. So where there's a half double crochet stitch at the end of every row until we have the same amount of rows as prep chains that we made. So for those of you that have my numbers, I made a total of 25 chains. So from where we're at, I'm going to chain 2, flip my work. My following row is a odd number row, so I'm just going to extend my previous row stitches, closing off the row with a half double crochet. I'm just going to continue on with my basket weave detail until I have a total of 25 rows that's worked off of the piece. So I will not be counting these rows that we just did together. Once we have that completed, we should all end along the top half because we all made a number of odd prep chains. Then I'll meet everyone back so we can connect it to the other side of our panel and then we can continue on with our sleeve from there. We are back. I have just completed the width of my sleeve. Now I had a total of 25 prep chains, and I did a total of 25 rows that was not connected into the base. Now we're just going to connect it into the other side that we have of our arm framing stitch marker stitch, then just complete the row. So what we're going to do, since we all should have ended along the top, which is right after an odd number row, is we're going to slip stitch it into our following arm framing stitch marker. So go ahead and fold your work in half. So this is my body portion. This is my other arm framing stitch marker stitch. All we're going to do is slip stitch it into that stitch to connect. So yarn over, pull through everything, and automatically flip our work and get started on the following row. Then these following rows are going to be done exactly the same way as the first portion of our sleeve that was connected into the base. So just as a refresher, our following row will be an even number row for everyone. So we're going to do the opposite from what our previous row stitches look like, making our way all the way down, making sure that we close off the row with a half double crochet. And from there, we're just going to connect it into the base the same way that we did when we got started on the sleeve. Then once we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet everyone back so we can seam it all together. All right, so we're back. We have just made our way all the way down with the rest of our sleeve. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it all up. So first things first, we're all going to make sure that the work is flipped wrong side out. Then all we're going to do is insert our hook into that first available stitch into the front panel of the sleeve, first available stitch into the back, and single crochet. Again, next stitch into the front, next stitch into the back, single, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way down. And when we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do not do a chain up one and cut, because we can work straight into the cuff together from there. So we are back. We have just completed seaming up our sleeve. Now from here, we're going to single crochet along the edge of our cuff to get started on the length. So first things first, since our hook should already be at the edge of our sleeve, we're just going to chain one, then simply put one single crochet into every side row. So finding our first side row, this is mine right here. I'm going to find that top loop, insert with one, next side row, insert with a second, and that's it. From here, just continue with one single crochet into every side row. So we are back. Our single crochet row is complete. We have slip stitched into that chain space. Now from here, we're all going to make a chain the length that we'd like the cuff to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 3 inches or 8 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain 15. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to do a slip stitch row. So block off that last chain and do a chain one. That chain one doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then into that chain that we blocked off for the second chain from our hook, we're all going to insert with a slip stitch. Again, into that next chain, insert, yarn over, and gently pull through everything. Now we do want to make sure that we're not tugging too tightly, otherwise the following row will be too tight to work into. But from here, put one slip stitch into every chain. So now that we've made our way down with our first row, we're going to connect it into the base. So just finding that next available stitch into the base, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then in order to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next stitch into the base. None of those slip stitches count as a stitch and flip our work. Then from here, put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So finding that last stitch from our previous row, not into any of those slip stitches into the base, we're going to find that back loop or the loop that's furthest away from us, yarn over, pull through everything. Again, into that next stitch's back loop or the loop that's furthest away from us, insert, pull through everything. From here, continue with one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Then at the end of the row, chain one, flip our work, put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch again, then I'll meet you back at the end of our row 3. Now we are back. We have just completed our first 3 rows. Now we're going to connect it into the base, and it is going to be done the same way as our previous rows. So just into that next available stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch, and now it's completed. Then since we're here, just to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, flip our work, and now from here, just continue with one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. From here, all we're going to do is continue to repeat our 2 previous rows with no increases, no decreases until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all together. All right, so we are back. We have made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it up together. So this is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam. So we're going to start by making sure that our work is slipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back, then yarn over and pull through everything. Now we're going to chain 1 and do our outside loop slip stitch seam. So finding that first stitch into the front panel, we're going to insert only into that front loop. First stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back loop. Then yarn over and pull through everything on our hook. Let's do that again. Into that next stitch into the front panel, insert into the front loop. Next stitch into the back, into that back loop. Yarn over, pull through all 3. Continue on till we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up a 1 and cut. So we are back. We have just completed seaming up our cuff. Now once we have one completed, we're going to be doing a second one that is exactly the same. Then we're going to get started on the top band and then the bottom band. Now we're going to get started on the top band. So first things first, we're all going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to do a single crochet row along the entirety of the top. Now that's going to be fairly simple. Into any of the stitches that we have, we're simply going to put 1 single crochet into every stitch. Then into the top of the rows that we have for the sleeve, we're going to put 1 single crochet into every side row. So I inserted my hook into the stitch that I have that's nearest to my sleeve just because I want to show you guys how that's going to work. So go ahead and insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, chain up a 1 to secure. Then working into our side rows, simply put 1 single crochet into every side row, kind of like how we did for the cuff. So just finding that first side row, this is mine right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with just 1 single crochet. Again, next side row, insert with 1, and that's it. Continue with 1 single crochet into every side row and 1 single crochet into every single crochet, making our way all the way around. Then I'll meet everyone back to get started on the height. And just as a really quick tip, the single crochet row is going to be as wide as this portion can stretch. So when it's completed, try your piece on. If it's too tight, reduce some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's too loose, reduce some stitches with a tighter grip. Then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have just completed our single crochet row along the top. Now from here, what we're going to do right after we slip stitch into that chain space is make a chain the length that we'd like for the top band to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 2.5 inches or 7 centimeters. So now I'm going to start by making a chain 12. So now that we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 3. Now that chain 3 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Now we're going to double crochet all the way down. So starting with the yarn over, we're going to insert our hook into that chain that we blocked off, or the 4th chain from our hook, with a double crochet. So insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Again, yarn over, into that next chain, pull through. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and from here, continue with 1 double crochet into every chain. So we are back and our first row is completed. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So what we're going to do is count up the next 2 available stitches into the base. So here's 1, here's 2. Into that second stitch, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Now, our row 1 is now completed. That slip stitch does not count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, we're going to slip stitch up the next 2 available stitches. So there is 1. Go ahead and slip stitch into that following as well. Now none of those slip stitches into the base count as a stitch. Now we're going to flip our work. Then from here, we're going to put 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch. So yarn over, into that first stitch's back loop, pull through 2, pull through 2. Once more, yarn over, next stitch's back loop, pull through 2, pull through 2. We're going to continue with 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch. Then at the end of the row, chain 3, flip our work and put 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch again. Then I'll meet you back at the end of our row 3. So we are back. Our first 3 rows are completed. Now from here, we're going to connect it into the base the same way that we did our previous rows. So we're going to count up the next 2 available stitches. There's 1, there's 2, slip stitch into there just to connect. Remember that slip stitch doesn't count. Then just to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch up the following 2 stitches into the base, flip our work, and 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows, making our way all the way around. While we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back so we can seam it up together. So we have made our way all the way around with our top band. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it up, but this seam is actually going to be done exactly the same way as the seam that we did for the sleeve. So what we're going to do is just flip our work wrong side out and do our same exact single crochet seam till we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up one and cut. So we are back. We're now ready to get started on the bottom band. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Insert our hook into any one of the stitches that we have along the bottom of our piece, and we're all going to start with a single crochet row. Now fairly simply, we're just going to put one single crochet into every stitch, then I'll meet you guys back. Now as a quick tip, this single crochet row as well will be as wide as this portion can stretch, so just to make sure that it fits, once when it's completed, just try your piece on, making sure that everything still fits. If it's a little too tight, reduce some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's too loose, reduce some stitches with a tighter grip. Then I'll meet you back. So we are back. Our single crochet row for the bottom portion of our piece is completed. Now we're going to get started on the length of our bottom band. Now that's actually going to be done exactly the same way as our cuff, so just to talk you guys through it, right after we slip stitch into that chain space, we're going to make a chain the length that we like for the bottom band to be. Then we're just going to do our same back loop slip stitch rows, making our way all the way around. Then when we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all together. But just to let you guys know, I would like for my bottom band to be just about 3 inches as well as my cuff. So I'm going to make another chain 15, then I'll meet you guys back. So we are back. The bottom band is completed, and now from here we're going to seam it up, but the seam is going to be done exactly the same way as the cuffs. So just do our same exact outside loop slip stitch seam till we don't have any more stitches left. When we don't, do a chain up a 1 and cut. And we are back. We have just completed seaming everything up and we are all done. Now the last thing we have to do is weave in all of our ends. And there you have it, y'all. Hope you enjoy the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye.